The vast Republic of Zaire, formerly the Belgian Congo, takes its name from the river. The Zaire is 2,718 miles long, placid for much of its length, but punctuated by 4 appalling areas of rapids, some with standing waves 40 feet high. The man who first saw and navigated the river 100 years ago, American journalist, geographer and explorer Henry Morton Stanley, leader of the 1874 expedition. Stanley marched overland from Lake Tanganyika and joined the river 600 miles further north, near Nyangwe. Setting out from Zanzibar in 1874, Stanley intended to cross Africa from east to west, settling en route all the remaining geographical unknowns. It was a quest from which few expected him to return, and some openly hoped he wouldn't. 3 years before, he had already become a world figure by finding Dr. Livingstone at Ujiji on Lake Tanganyika. Stanley wrote his account for the New York Herald. Many explorers regarded finding Livingstone as a journalistic stunt. He reached Ujiji again in 1876. There he dismantled his sectional boat, the Lady Alice, and marched across country to Nyangwe. Escorted by the notorious Arab slave trader Tipu Tib and 200 of his men, Stanley set off overland rather than follow the winding course of the river Lualaba. The appalling task of dragging the Lady Alice through the forest soon became daunting. After 17 days' march, during which they covered 160 miles, Tipu Tib's men turned back. Stanley finally launched the Alice on December the 28th, 1876. From the start, the 2,000-mile journey was one long horror. All told, Stanley fought 31 battles with natives along the banks. The cataracts were even worse than he feared. 14 men were drowned in them. His total losses from fever, hunger and fighting were 165, including 3 white companions. Early on, he nearly lost one of his most faithful followers, a veteran called Zaidi, who had served with Livingstone. Zaidi became marooned on a small rock after his canoe had overturned. He had to stay there all night until rescue could be organized. Within 50 miles of the town of Boma, close to the mouth of the river, he nearly gave up hope. 8 men had recently died from starvation. He sent 4 picked men ahead with written messages. Within 3 days, porters arrived with mules laden with food, and Stanley was saved. With 115 survivors, all in fearful condition, he arrived in Boma. At last, the world was to recognize Henry Morton Stanley as a geographer and explorer of the very first rank.